I record all these. I don't know why. I don't think anybody actually listens to them. Can you guys see my screen or my PDF? Okay.
Yep.
Well, let me do a quick little, what's the date today? Well, hi everyone. Today is Wednesday, December 16th, 2015. And sadly, but not so sadly, I guess, because means we're making progress. This is our last official design team meeting for the Open ABE MOOC, and we have a full house tonight. Thank you everybody for joining us. I'd really like to just go through a couple housekeeping items on the agenda, and then really make this an opportunity for the designers to ask final questions and make sure we have all of our T's crossed and I's dotted as far as the final deliverables you'll be turning in next week. And so let's just jump right into it. I just want to say thank you. I kind of stepped back a little bit today, and I was like, wow, I can't believe we're at like 20 weeks in on this. And we still have, at least me, I have a lot to do to get this all nicely uploaded and shined up for the Canvas folks to do their final review that they'll do in February before the enrollment or the course actually starts. But I just can't thank you guys enough for showing up all the time, getting everything turned in. This has been a really wonderful experience for me, and I certainly hope for you as well. So with that, let's kind of not get too excited about finishing up until we actually do finish up. So the most important date that I really want to talk through tonight is this our deadline of next Monday for the designers to turn in their team deliverables. I had a couple conversations by email with folks on how this will work, and I did have the opportunity with John and Eric to give it a go on their module. And what I found was I was able to use like 90% of what they gave me. However, as everyone knows, when you take something from a written plan to into action, there's transitions, there's wording, word choices, flow, things like that. So I fully anticipate, as you see on this important dates down there, it says mid-January, us having a brief review cycle where basically I turn you guys loose to look at what I have done in terms of upload it into Canvas, and then ask for your input and feedback on stuff as minor as typos and things like that, to more heady stuff like I don't think that assignment is working correctly and things like that. So that will happen hopefully by mid-January. I'll have enough content in there that we can get that review, a very brief review, happening. And I don't anticipate I'll ask too much of your time, but if you can kind of keep that in mind. Otherwise, believe it or not, you guys are pretty much off the schedule starting January 7th. We're moving on to the facilitators, and I know we have a few of you that are joining on the facilitation team, and thank you for that. I appreciate it. But just to give you guys a sense of how things are going, I spoke with Hillary this week, and they consider us very much on track for the January 11th enrollment, and we're very much on track for starting the course on February 22nd. So yay us. we stuck to our original goals. So what I'm looking for, and Stacy, I know you had some questions, so you may want to chime in on here. I am going to do all the uploading, even though you have access to Canvas. I just think it's going to make things a little bit easier in terms of flow and all those things I mentioned earlier. So what I really need from everybody is I'd really appreciate one email from you saying, here's where my stuff is, either linking me to a Google Docs file or some slides or whatever it may be. If you have a Google Drive folder or a Dropbox or whatever it may be, including all of your attachments or any links to other things you may be using, such as YouTube. I think that'll help me get everything all in one place for each designer. And again, I'm pretty flexible on how you present it. I don't really care. It doesn't have to be back on that module template if you've kind of gone in a different direction, but just so I have one place that I can turn to and say, okay, this is what John turned in, and I can, upload this and ask him questions about it. And then if you have any questions in this last push in terms of how things, I will be laying things out. I think it's, you could go refer to the module 0 and the module 1 to get a pretty good sense for how things laid out. That worked pretty well for the Canvas folks, and they signed off on that. But all this said, do expect a few emails. In fact, John and I had a quick Google Hangout in midstream to talk through some things regarding his persona activity. And hopefully he got something out of it. I sure did. Anyway, we talked through some of the design elements and kind of how the exercise and activity would flow. So kind of keep an eye out for some last minute straggler emails from me as well on that after we get things in. And then Stacy, maybe this would be a good time to let you ask your question on the video. What type of video were you contemplating, and where were you thinking about storing it?
Actually, it's not a video. It's a HTML5, which can be made either or developed either through a PowerPoint or through something called Articulate Storyline.
Hmm?
And I believe that it is something that Canvas supports in
Okay.
the rich editor. But I don't know, Jessica. You've had little more experience than I do. I don't know if this is something that you have experienced using HTML5. Basically, it could be made into a video where everything kind of moves on its own with a narration, but it's not like a Vimeo video per se. So it should be supported but what I wanted to do was just quickly go in and use one of my samples and see if it works, and then if it doesn't, I can just delete it and not have anything in there. So I wanted to go in the module 2 of Canvas, try and upload one of my other samples that I have, and then see if it works. And if it doesn't work or it doesn't load or what have you, then I won't do it. So
Okay.
I just wanted to do a quick review to see if it's something that would be supported.
Okay, great. Yeah, please do that. That's
Okay.
absolutely fine.
All right. That's all I was asking, because I don't want to. I'll pick a second. I'll go another route if that's not it. But I have an example of something totally separate, and I just didn't want to create something and take all the time to do that when it's not supported. So.
Do you know, Jessica, do any of those words make sense to you in terms of how you know Canvas works?
I don't know the storyline outputs, I guess. So if it's an embed code or if it's something that you store differently. I know for our instance of Canvas, we don't have access to any of the JavaScript or anything. So we've been a little bit limited, but there are a ton of plugins too. So, they may have a storyline plugin. I know they have a Drupal plugin that we have access to. So if you need to turn something like that on to make them work, I don't think it would be a problem. I just don't know without seeing it exactly.
Okay. All right, great. I'll take a look at it.
And do take a look. And Stacey, if it looks like you cannot, Hillary's been really great with one-off questions like this. So if you can, test it out, send me a quick email. Again, more to the point, you couldn't do it, and then we'll write off to her and ask her if she could point us in the right direction. Once you've had a chance to play with it, does that sound good? Okay. And she's been really receptive. We actually had, this might be a good time to mention it. I think we're kind of getting into the part where we talk about the design questions. Jessica, I don't know if you saw her feedback, but, and Eric, maybe this will be interesting to you. They're no longer using the Canva badges or whatever that weird name was. She actually told us to stop using it and to try either Badger or Credly, I think it was. And so the one downside of that is it doesn't make it nearly as easy to have multiple modules lead toward the completion of a badge. So Jessica, I don't know, you're more familiar with how modules and things work within Canvas. Do you think it would, my suggestion of making that certificate badge, the certificate module, once that opens up, then that would make the badge available? Does that sound possible?
I think that is definitely possible. I think because you can also set restrictions on that certificate page. I'm sorry, I didn't look at that specific page, but you can make it so that they have to submit their drafts throughout and participate in different things before they can see the certificate.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so as long as all of that's set up, and then you put the badge on that page or after, I think that would be fine. And then I think the only thing that's really important is making sure that the final product gets tied to the badge somehow, so that when they share it, if someone else clicks on it, they're able to see that evidence.
Ah.
So that was the only piece that I didn't I couldn't tell from the creator side if
Okay.
Badger had that.
Okay. I don't know either.
Um,
Okay.
So, I mean, we can play with it. There's still
Okay.
opportunity to do that, but that would be the only thing that I'd want to make sure of.
Okay. And it looked like she really was pushing this Badger, right? Didn't you get that sense from the email?
Yeah.
Or is
And I
this,
know
yeah.
that group's done, I think, the most work on badge best practices, and they have a lot of research and a lot of thought around their badging programs. So I think it makes sense to go with them.
Okay. And did you want to do anything, Jessica? Now, maybe this might be not be a bad time to talk about. Did you want to do any type of research around this badge stuff, or were you probably running on a daylight to do that? Whichever, doesn't matter to me.
I mean, I would love to. I guess what I was thinking is even just survey data at the very end. So did you plan on using it? Is it a motivator? Did you share it? If so, where?
Okay.
I think that kind of information would be interesting to see, how they're using it, if they're using it.
Okay.
But, we can talk more about that too.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, that's absolutely fine. Yep, I have you down for that, so that's great. So let's kind of go through the modules. I don't know if what are you guys, module 1? Did you guys want to share a little bit about how things are going, or did you have any questions?
Eric and I had a call yesterday, and remember we have 4 parts. So you took care of 1 and 2, and I went through it, Jennifer. It looked really good. So I think it's coming along really well. Part 4 is in pretty good shape now. I had to make some changes because of what you and I had discussed and how part 1 changed. And I'll let Eric speak to part 3 because we talked about it a little bit yesterday, and he was just going to tighten that up. So we're just about done.
Oh, great. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, and as far as for me, tomorrow I'm gonna pretty much I'm gonna put my content back into essentially a Google slide. I think that worked pretty well.
It did work well. Yeah, and yeah, I don't know if everybody else kind of followed along with what Eric did, but he made it much like the Canvas slides look like, just enough content to fit on basically what you'd see on your screen if one window is open. Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed like the best way to kind of like workshop it, but I like to get it to somebody else. So what I wanted on each page. So I don't think it's going to take much time. I'm expecting to send you an email tomorrow and say, hey, knock yourself out.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
You got the hard work to do, actually, right? You got a bit of heavy lifting, but hopefully I think part 1 and part 2 and part 4 are done for us. And you'll get part 3 tomorrow, and that'll be it.
Okay, that's excellent. Yeah. And then to the rest of the group, even though I kind of went yay, rah, Eric, for using the slide or whatever, if you're not doing that, I don't care. Don't, don't waste 5 minutes of your time if you've already done it on some other way, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, in fact, I was just trying to figure out a way so that if we needed to, we could edit together. Mm-hmm. So that's really the only reason I picked that as opposed to anything else.
Yeah. So if you've done everything in the module template, no problem whatsoever. It'll just like Eric said, it'll be a little more, maybe a little more heavy lifting for me to kind of parse things out on a slide level, but it's not the end of the world. It's no problem. We kind of did that with John's part, and it added like 45 seconds, so it was not a big deal. All right, well, very good. How about group number 2, or module 2?
So this week, Stacy had uploaded some of her stuff into the module template, and that's where I've been doing most of my development as well. So yesterday I had the chance to kind of take a look over it, and now it's mostly about making sure that our two pieces fit together. Like module 1, it is 4 parts, and I've taken parts 3 and 4, and that's the open licensing and the OER piece. So mostly right now, the last thing to come in is the structure of like the final assignment. So earlier on in the module, the participants are figuring out like the scope and the learning objectives for their lesson.
Mhm.
And so I need to tie that into that final activity where they're going out and looking at existing materials if those exist.
Okay.
So just making sure that it's tied from the start to the end.
Okay.
The question I had, I know Jessica had taken a look at or wanted to take a look at the rubric that I had put together. And I was just wondering if it's kind of good to go or if she's still planning on making edits or suggestions or criticisms or anything.
Yeah, I think the only thing, I mean, I've been kind of in a holding pattern a bit just to make sure that the language between modules 2 and 3 and then mine all kind of tie together. I know Stacy and Felice did a really nice template, and I think that'll be great. So as long as that's the one we're going with, I can take another look too. I just didn't want to revise and then find out we were leaving out different sections or doing things a little bit differently. I think overall it's got what we need.
Do you have a link to that handy, JR, the rubric?
Give me 20 seconds.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. Because I know I think you had a link in the comment section maybe somewhere.
And just to be sure, are you introducing it in module 2? Is that kind of the...
Yeah, that's where I'll introduce it, just for that final activity where they're actually looking at existing lesson plans.
And is that the one that's based on the Achieve, or is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's based on the Achieve one, which is what OER Commons uses. But 6 rubrics is too many rubrics for what we're doing, so I kind of collapsed it into one. And this should be viewable by anyone who has the link, I believe.
Okay. Open this up. Okay.
So are you having them provide feedback on existing lessons then? Is that kind of the plan?
So not necessarily to give feedback on, so if I go into OER Commons as a participant in our MOOC, the intention is not to actually leave feedback there, but to determine if a lesson already exists that suits what they intend to build for modules, what would that be, 3 and 7 or 8?
Mm-hmm.
And just to determine the gap. So if something already kind of exists but is out of date, then it would come out in this review. So this is really just a job aid for them to do a review of something that exists, if it does exist, to see if maybe if something already exists, they want to really hammer on the accessibility of that resource, and that would actually be their development as opposed to building the entire lesson up from scratch. So just giving some flexibility in terms of what avenue they can go with, rather than doing necessarily a ground up development. They might do an adaptation.
Okay, great.
So I know we're kind of skipping around here, but as long as we're on this topic, since we kind of melded I think we originally had I don't even remember the numbers, but we had you doing the design plan, and then we had an evaluation that was going to come before the prototype, but you're kind of just doing a self-evaluation, right, Jessica, right now on that piece, is that right?
Yeah, so it would be a self-evaluation, and then we can turn on the peer evaluation feature if we want to. So the plan was to have them do one of their own,
Okay.
and then also one of a peer's, just to provide some feedback before prototyping.
And then the criteria that they were going to do for their peer review, was that based off of this document here, or you were thinking of making it much more abridged than that?
Originally, I was going to use this, but looking at the template from module 3, I'm wondering if it would be more appropriate to make a more focused version just around the areas within the plan.
That's perfect. And then I think what I'll do, if you guys think this makes sense, I'll pick this up then for the formative evaluation of the prototype, right? This would make a lot more sense at that stage, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. I was trying to figure out exactly what piece later in the MOOC that this would tie to.
Yep. And I think it's perfect. And I'll do this, and then also I'll see how much content you put as far as describing, where this came from. I keep forgetting the name. What's it called again? Achieve? I keep calling it a lead.
Yeah, all that's in the footer.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So yeah, that's perfect. So I will probably then work off of this, and I'm not sure to what degree yet, how much, as you're saying, how much reading through it will be completely applicable to the prototype, but then we'll definitely continue to carry the same thing, and this is what I'll use. So excellent. And Jessica, I'm absolutely fine. However you want to do yours. If you think it's a bridge too far to do a peer portion at that point, that's fine. Because we do have one whole module that's going to be an evaluation of the prototype where it will be a peer evaluation.
Okay.
So,
Okay, that sounds great.
okay. Okay, well, back on track. Stacy, sorry we had a little sidebar there.
That's okay. I do have a couple questions. Every time I look at this module and look at the two fairly, you would think, simple tasks that I have to complete or parts that I have to complete, there's such a mixture of like my teacher background with developing lesson plans, and then the instructional designer piece that's a little more training and like maybe more of like a human performance kind of feel. And it's just certain things, like even the learning objectives and stuff are done differently. And so basically I went in today and really looked at what is out there for ABE. And I went off of, I can't remember her name, one of the facilitators or SMEs that were with us before where we found the, what's the?
Yeah, Amanda with the,
Amanda. Yeah, it was Amanda. Yep. And
yep.
So I went back to that because I was talking with JR today, and I'm thinking, as a teacher, we always did like SMART objectives is what they called them. And it was just an acronym. And then when you go to instructional design, it's more of your conditional and behavior and kind of thing. So what they do is they combine the two again.
Right.
So, can I share my screen to show you? Let me just share this. I think I got it. Okay. Can you guys see the module overview?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is the beginning of ours. This is basically, we're going down, we have our topics, we have our context summary, going down relevance to practice, key terms. Okay, so I'm starting off with, I'm calling it a peer discussion, where they're just going to see where they fit amongst whether they're a novice at this, an intermediate, or they're advanced. And
okay.
I want them to discuss that amongst each other, like where they fit in. So they may be able to figure out within the group who might have more practice at this, or who's a strong person that we can depend on, or whatever, so as you go through, the second thing was to establish your scope and focus of your lesson. So of course those are just your basic questions, and I believe I called it the lesson style guide. Is that what we're going to call the one that we put together, that we kind of meshed the two?
I think so. We'll see.
Call it that?
We'll see
okay.
if it ultimately ends.
Yeah. So I called it a lesson style guide.
Keep dancing in circles because it's not quite a lesson plan. It's
I know.
Style guide. Yeah.
Exactly. So I said we would be providing that for them to take a look at. And these are some of the questions. Now, here's the other thing. As I was reading through and actually looking at some of the AB courses that are out there, I'm saying I went to the standards. I went and looked at lessons that revolved around standards within the 9th to 12th graders. And some of the topics that they may include would be like maybe global conflicts in social studies, or plant and animal classifications in biology. But really, they're not. They're not even going to touch on this stuff. This is what a typical 9th to 12th grader would be discussing in a course, but that is not what, like we chose the lesson of Shakespeare and on, but really what they were doing was, one of the lesson titles was "Don't Leave Me Hanging, I Want to Make Sense." And basically their objective was to have students identify a subject and a verb. They will identify sentences and fragments, and they'll write complete sentences. Like, so basic to what we're writing. And I don't know, I know that we understand this, but how they have to really simplify things for this particular group and really pay attention to what was said in module 1 in reference to who your audience is. So I'm thinking of taking my example of the Shakespeare and putting in something a lot more simple that they, because I was surprised. I thought, oh, they will touch on some things in literature and what have you, but really they're not. They're looking for basic skills to, get them through life and or just to pass, to get that GED. So I'm thinking that my main instructional goal, like I might have to change that a little bit to really reflect what is being taught at the ABE level. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So where, go back up. Can you scroll back up a second?
So here, really, they're talking about. They're talking more. Let me get this over. Hold on one second. They're talking more about instead of like solving word problems in math or daily math skills, such as how to use a calculator or how to balance a checkbook, how to read and interpret charts. Those are the things that we need lessons on that for this particular group. In reading and writing, they're just looking to find the main idea of maybe an article out of the newspaper, or understand the words and the new vocabulary that might come from that article in the newspaper or a magazine. Being able to make predictions. So, doing graphic linear equations is like
way over the top.
That's to the moon.
So at what point do you introduce then, and is it the next part of this, you introduce the standard itself?
Right. So here, this was just picking the topic. So I think I need to change I was trying to give the instructional designer, what types of topics that they will be talking about or what they could possibly write about or create a lesson around.
Right.
So I think I'm going to have to change my here in the yellow and make it even simplify it even more.
I wonder, and I don't know if this will really throw you off. Can you take us to your section on the standards?
Sure.
Would that
make
it potentially easier to grab one of the standards to come up with that topic?
Okay. So if we go down to the standards, we're picking, this is just an overall. These are where you're finding them from. So again, they use both this website of the Common Core State Standards and the College and Career Readiness. It's kind of a combination.
Right.
So if we go down to understanding the standards, this would be, and I know this is hard to see, E would be 9th to 12th grade. And you're basically, cite, I can't even read it, strong and thorough textual evidence to support analysis of whatever the text says explicitly, as well as references drawn from the text. That could be a simple newspaper article, from the Daily News that they brought to class, and they're going to try and that's the supporting standard. The main standard is to read closely to determine what the text says explicitly and to make logical inferences from it. It's hard for me to see it. That's it.
So I think this goes to kind of that, what you said, it seemed really simplistic, but but that example that you had, what was the one about?
Way too complicated.
Yep. And then the one that followed, though, I can see then where that would actually be almost an applicable lesson to that standard, wouldn't it? Where was it? Students will identify subjects and verbs and sentence fragments and write. It's almost like at that level, really, right? It's
right.
Standard.
Exactly. So if you actually look at here, I have one actually. I have one pulled up. Let me show you. Is this it here? Here is something from Texas Center for Advancement. Here's what their lesson plans are. This is how simplistic, and so how, this was actually one that was a little bit more. Demonstrate the surface tension of water is great enough to cling together and be pulled across wax paper surface. Like this is actually one of the higher end
Right.
lessons. Some of the other ones were so simplistic. I was like, wait a minute, here they all are. And they're just like doing an adding card game.
Mhm.
Basically, they're, fast recall and rapid recall of additional facts,
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's not really at a ninth to 12th grade level, I guess you would say. It
Mhm.
seems like it's more at an elementary level.
And I think the where that gets defined, at least for me anyway, is within in the standard. And like you said, I don't think you'd really expect a senior in high school to be challenged by what's in that column E, correct? Right?
Correct.
Um, so do you think it makes sense to introduce the standard first or the topic first?
Well, that's what I went back and forth with a lot of times. So this, I decided to do the topic first, and I thought I could keep it pretty simplistic. I could just change the example, is what I'm saying. Should I
Yep.
take out the Shakespeare example and just do something that's a little more simple, that is reference to a magazine article or
Yep.
something that they're actually going.
Summarizing or synthesizing.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I might change that out. And I was just looking for opinions, because then it goes into the learning objectives and the outcomes. And as I said before, they're using a combination of audience, behavior, condition, and degree. So they call it the ABCDs.
Mhm.
And it's basically a combination of the
Mhm.
other two, but
Mhm.
which is fine. So I just kept that. Here's what an example of an intended learning outcome. An adult basic education will be able to determine the distance between two cities to within plus or minus 10 miles when given the map of the United States. Like,
Mhm.
that's it. Like, that's what I'm seeing out there.
Mhm.
This is an example of basically a learning outcome. So, and these are just some other examples. So you can see how, definitely they're not doing graphic linear
Right, exactly.
equations.
You know what? And I'm reading Jessica and JR's comments. Intuitively to me, it makes sense to start with a standard, because to me, the
Okay.
standards are the that's where your objectives flow from,
Right.
and then
Right.
pick a topic within that to frame the lesson. So,
Okay.
was that hard? I mean, I hope I'm not making you
No,
reinvent the wheel at
no,
this point, but
it's just a part one and part two. I can completely, switch them around. All
I
it
think
is
I'd
a,
start with the standards.
yeah.
I
And
think
some people do that and some don't. So it just, I guess it doesn't matter. Either way you want to go about it, it doesn't matter.
No,
So,
JR's making a completely different case. Starting with standards would be overwhelming as opposed to determining the topic. I don't know. Well, JR, do you want to
I
state your
just
case?
I just remember when Stacy first sent me the standards, and I sat there for like part of an afternoon in a coffee shop thinking, what the heck is this?
I know.
And not really knowing how to read it. Whereas, like, and eventually through a conversation with her, I kind of figured out what I was actually looking at.
Um,
But
do you want to take us
the,
down to the standards a second? It just seems like you laid them out so nicely. I like that
yeah,
one you had as the example. I think once that you read that section E, you could go, oh, as an educator, you'd go, oh, okay, I will pull an article that's, a topical article that they would be interested in, and get them involved in citing blah blah blah, whatever the requirement is within the standard.
exactly. But if they choose their topic first, let's say they're doing something and it revolves around global studies, or maybe they're reading an article that deals with global conflict or something like that. And it's an article, a recent article in the newspaper or Time magazine or something like that, and they're sharing it, and they're looking for keywords, they're looking for vocabulary to pull out of that. Like, they can. So it's like, do you want to start with the topic, and I have this article and I want to share this with you, and this is what standard's going to go with that, or do you say, here's the standard, now let's go find our materials that are going to support it?
Well, I happened to have lunch today with a guy or not today, yesterday, who works at McGraw-Hill, who designs adult basic education materials.
Mm-hmm.
And he
Okay.
thought one of the strengths of what we're doing is we are so focused on the standards and the people being able to sort through our OER Commons to find things based on the standards. Not to say that the topic's not important, because he had some good
Mm-hmm.
examples for that as well. But he said the TABE test and the other tests tell you where the students are. And while it's not quite there yet, but he said by the end of 2016, beginning of 2017, the TABE test will actually say they need help on anchor standard, whatever it may be,
Okay.
and then direct them right to, so anyway, long story short, the more we can keep things driven by this standard, I think we're on very solid ground. I do
Okay.
agree with what you're saying as far as the topic, because you can go in a lot of different directions when you're trying to teach
Sure.
them. Could it be a history lesson on
Right.
whatever?
Yeah.
You don't
Mhm.
hear so much about the standard, but I guess in my gut, my gut tells me to lead with the standard.
Okay. All right. I'll flip them around then. I'll flip the sequence of everything and start with this, learn how to read them, and then where to find them, because it is easier online than to look through the career readiness packet. It's very confusing. Like, this is one little piece out of there's 9 of them. There's 9 anchor standards, so there's 9 of them to go through. But it nicely puts the supports like right here in the column. So this is the support standard, and then that's your main anchor standard. So there's 9 of them though for you to go through at the 9 to 12 level, or 9 to 10 level, and to say which one am I going to work on, and then find the material that you can use to support that. So
yeah,
that's completely fine. And then there's also your math standards that aren't written anything like this.
totally written differently. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So, and we can wait to get to Felice. So, did you think we can handle them both, or?
Oh yeah, the math ones I'm going to put out there, but let them know that it's different, and it's easier to do that online. You just click on math standards, and whether you want to do algebra, geometry, whatever it might be, you can just click on that standard, and they'll basically give you a list of 6 standards that you have to pick from. Or math's different because it's a little more like you're going to do it or you're not. It's kind of more cut and dry. Like, are you going to learn fractions, or do you want to do something more modeling of geometry or something? So it is a lot different. But
well, and everybody I've talked to who is familiar with the GED test is saying all the English language arts really is it's a comprehension test. It's a basic reading comprehension. Like, read a passage, pull out the most the pertinent parts. If you have to write the short essay, it's like reading a bunch of passages and pulling together concepts and conclusions. So, I wish it had. I wish it were different.
Oh, it's not. It's just where you want to start, and I can just flip them around. And they were just the questions I had, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going through it, and I'm like, are they going to understand this? Like, as I'm reading some of the ABE actual lessons, like, they don't do anything, like, they're not focused, at least the ones that I have viewed, and hopefully that's changing. Hopefully our course will help them to change and to make sure they include all of these things in, to really make it a cohesive course and make it a lesson, and really, hit on all of these marks that we're trying to give to them. So like, there's even an app for it. Basically, you click on the Common app and it'll tell you what grade level, what do you want to talk about, which one do you want to go for, and then you can go to the OER and grab a lesson that's already created if you wanted to.
Right, and then adapt it for our audience, right?
Exactly.
Which is,
but that's what I'm saying. The adaptive part is so basic. It doesn't really fit in with the typical 9 through 12 high schooler. It's looking at module 1, you really have to really take into consideration
who we're
who we're working with. So okay, let me stop sharing and I'll zip it.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you very much. I think you're totally on the right track, and sorry, JR, we overruled you. So, all right, Felice, do you want to take the screen, or just tell us what you're doing?
I can tell what I'm doing. I have a question though. I was taking the Canvas tutorial today. Are we allowed to use any PowerPoint or Articulate?
You can, as long as we're able to, like if it's a PowerPoint is pretty easy. Do you mean just a straight PowerPoint where we would just look at the slides, or would it be have like audio and things with it, or what?
It's not gonna be audio, but there's definitely like some like more interactive. Like I kind of saw. How about Articulate?
Well, Jessica, you want to kind of, do you know much about that, Jessica, as far as how, I think as you said, it depends on how they pull it back, right?
Yeah, and JR posted a really great link too in the chat that I think addresses it well. The one thing that it reminded me was the most important thing is just make sure we don't just use the Flash output, because it'll work in a browser, but it won't work on mobile. Canvas still allows Flash and uses it a lot, but it doesn't work well on some devices. So I think the link that he shared does a nice job of explaining how the output can work.
The one from Eric, you mean? Was there another one?
May have been. Oh yeah, it's from Eric. Sorry.
Okay.
Yep.
And so, Felice, what and here's my 2 cents on the using PowerPoint. Sometimes we run into problems with what version people may be using on their end. So if they click, they download the thing, and you have interactions where you're having them click on things, and there's maybe even some video or whatever linked, or not linked from it, but like embedded with it. Because we tried to do that in the past cohorts. We had everything they were developing in PowerPoint, and then our client tried to open it on an older version of PowerPoint, and they didn't have the same functionality as what it was developed in. So if you have the ability to use Articulate, go for it. And
I do actually. I asked one of my friends. He's working with Canvas, but he's working for like a paid version of it. So I don't know if it's the same for the free version of it. He said it's working fine, and actually, I start creating, after I talked to him, I start creating my courses on Articulate, but when I was trying to figure it out, if I can really upload it, I didn't see anything. I think I need to put my output as LMS, Learning Management System, and then leave the HTML5 option off, check that off. So I think we should be fine, if I'm not wrong, based on my conversation with him, but I really don't know where we're at.
Okay. And so the part you're doing in Articulate is like your, like the kind of presentation of your material and having them do some interactions with that. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And it also has this core page that I'm hoping that it's gonna report to the Canvas. So instead of what I want you to do, just upload it, and they will do all activities, everything on Articulate.
Okay.
And then whatever score they got, it will be reported to the LMS, the Canvas.
Wow. Okay.
So that's what I'm trying to push, and I'm finalizing. I'm pretty much done with my content, but I'm still a little bit I'm still adding some content which I shouldn't do. I already have enough, but I can just keep. I gotta stop that. And then I also we talked to Stacy like a couple of weeks ago, and we are using the same examples for our learners. And I use the WIPA. I use the WIPA for their they are using WIPA, and we are using this first principles. I kind of created a little bit content how they are similar and how they are different. Like WIPA doesn't have reflection activities. They end up at the application activities, and they see post-test as a reflection activities, which Merrill says post-test is not really a reflection.
Right.
And so I'm kind of trying to highlight the differences and the similarities.
Okay.
And I'm hoping that I will be done by this weekend.
Okay.
I need some rest.
Yeah. Yes, it sounds like you're really. So I guess my question is, I'm a little nervous. Is it all in Articulate? Like if I have to make adjustments, because as you're saying, like if we change something in Stacy's section and then it changes in yours, is your whole section in Articulate, or just like a part of your?
Right now, I did 2 sections. I did like 2 modules. I know I don't think it's 2 modules, but 2 lessons for the 2 phases,
Okay.
activation and the demonstration.
Okay.
They are articulate, but I don't know if I was kind of scared when I don't see. I stop putting them on articulate. So I want to talk to you first.
Yeah. Because yours is the only one I think. I mean, subsections are fine. I'm a little, just based on how much I tweaked and I worked with Eric and Eric's section and, and John's section. You know, once we kind of get into getting things loaded in, I hate for you to spend a tremendous amount of time, and then I don't even. I'm not able to make revisions and articulate.
Okay, I think this is what I'm gonna do then. Let me send you what I produce on paper, like put like a Word on a
Okay.
Word
Mhm.
document and send it to you. Maybe you can give me feedback from that, and it will make our job easier for both of us.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? Perfect. And as far as what you turn in on Monday, turn in what you've got as far as it written on paper, and then exactly we'll talk through like what we might be able to carve out, so what sections we would put into articulate, rather than having you spend all kinds of time from now till Monday doing that. Yeah, for sure. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, it does totally. Okay, this is
Okay.
what I'm gonna do then.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great, because I think it's good to break up. I think Jessica and others have mentioned, you know, we are pretty text heavy at this point. So if we could carve out sections that you would, and I think Eric had tried the or was going to try maybe the video thing, or somebody was, I don't remember, the one that Zaption or whatever it's called, as a means of breaking up the text heavy presentation. But you definitely don't need to do the whole the whole module in it. That's
Okay.
not necessary.
I went through the training for Zaption, and I think that, I mean, it looks like a good tool, but because we're working with adults and we're not necessarily like grading them or assessing them heavy, I was just kind of like, yeah, people are going to go through this and take what they want. I don't need to put them on rails.
Right.
Necessarily, right? Like they're going to read it much faster, and they're motivated to learn what they need to learn because they want to get out there and teach students. So,
Yeah. And I didn't find a lot of value in the Zaption quizzes personally. They were just like little recall type questions with one.
yeah, it's going to be the lowest type of critical thinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, unless you're just trying to make sure people are paying attention, there's probably better ways to do it when you're working with adults.
Yep. Yeah. So just to, and Felice just kind of put a bow on what we're talking about. My vote for right now is let's get everything in there. If our biggest fault is it's too text heavy right now, that's not a bad problem, because we can go back through and figure out ways to offload content in other means. But what I really fear is that you'd spend a ton of time doing something and articulate, and then we'd have to kind of massage it or go back and change it. So stick with the text for now, and we'll work through the other pieces as we start developing it.
Okay, I can maybe use some infographics. I can pronounce his name, but I use it.
Yeah.
And I kind of look at the other night. I think they can also be very useful, like with the visual stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, stuff like that is great. That would be great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Jessica, you're up.
Okay, so I think the biggest thing for me was just moving forward with finding examples. So I've kind of been thinking about and pulling and searching for things that I can customize so that once they get to module 4 and they start building, I can show them examples and non-examples, and then give them the opportunity to draft. So I really don't have a ton of content, just knowing that they need to spend time there doing that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, and then module 5 is the self-evaluation piece. So I'll build off the rubric and simplify it. I feel good about them. I mean, I think.
Oh, you know what? Okay, you were saying module 5. I think you might be basically done, Jessica. Hang on a second, because I think is that the one that was originally Josh's?
Yeah, so it was evaluation. Do you want them both in the same?
Yeah, I think you can just do a little self-evaluation. Let me
Yeah.
pull up Canvas real quick. Um, because I think, if my memory serves.
No, I think you're right. I saw that you had kind of collapsed them, but I wasn't sure how you wanted it laid out. So I can
Yeah,
just do it as part 1 and part 2, and
I
that'll
think,
be good.
and then just really scale it back, I think,
Yeah.
is
Okay.
fine. And then whatever you do for your self-evaluation, however you try to do it, I'll make sure I pick up that, and then as we talked before, I'll make sure with the prototype it's going to be a little more robust as far as what they develop, and so I'll tie in the stuff that JR had in his evaluation rubric.
Okay. That sounds great.
Yep. So hopefully, does that hopefully cut out some work for you? I hope.
Yeah, I think just thinking about, some of the content around evaluation and explaining why and what to do.
You know what? You can leave that to me.
Okay.
I'll do that in Module 6. So why don't
Okay.
you just have yours as more of, since we aren't having anybody give them formal feedback on their, like a facilitator or whatever, have them things that they should make sure that they're including. I like how you did that as far as even the way you laid out, like explaining why you had to write each section or whatever. And then just, do you have that one link that I had as far as how we did the evaluations last time of the design proposals?
Yes, I do.
Because I'm just thinking maybe we could even make that like a quiz where it's not graded, but let me think through that. Almost like or I guess it could just be a rubric, right?
Yeah, like a checklist kind of.
Yep.
Make sure. Sure.
Would that make things easier for you too? If it's like a checklist?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay, and let me know and touch base if as you start digging into it, it's not making sense. But I guess big picture, I think if you just tell them how to write the proposal and then have some like a checklist of make sure your proposal includes, that's all we need to do as far as that. And I'll pick up evaluation in Module 6.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. All right. Well, we are winding down. Did anybody else have any big picture questions that you had for me before we conclude? I did want to let you guys know I have a sort of okay looking page on our website for promoting let's see if this opens. Can you see I don't know if I'm sharing my screen. Can you guys see my screen? Let's see. Let me go to it real quick. Okay. So if you go to that, designersforlearning.org/openabe MOOC, this will be when January comes, people can click on this and then go to Canvas. But it basically is an overview, pretty much everything you'd want to know and more about this course, what the focus is, like prerequisites, time commitment, things like that. What will I do? What's the instructional design project, and so on and so forth. So my thought process is we'll just start spamming people with this link. So if you have the opportunity to look through it, if you see anything that's weird or wrong, I think this, again, is probably more than people will ever want to read, but hopefully we'll answer most of the questions that people would have and then point them in the direction of where you can enroll, when it starts, that it's free, things like that. So that is up there live on our website. Let me go back to our thing here. And then final reflections for our group. What I'm going to do is what I've done at the end of every cohort. I'll just send out a really quick survey to everybody, all of our designers, meaning you guys. And we want to make sure we're quantifying the time you spent doing your design work, and please do not sweat this at all. As I said before, we've had 20 weeks so far, and so if you kind of look back over those 20 weeks, on average, how many hours per week did you devote to the project? So for example, if you spent 3 hours a week on average, you spent 60 hours of volunteer time. And we just, as designers for learning, we just keep a running tally of the volunteer hours that we have on our project. So I'll send out a survey link, and then it'll just include another set of really quick questions regarding your satisfaction with the experience, perceptions of various things, and then suggestions for the future. So I'll send that out in the last week of December. It's not an imperative that you could turn that around really quickly, but if we could get that within the first week in December, first week in January, that would be great. And I'll send the link out probably by the end of this week. And then thank you. We're concluding, about 4 minutes left in our hour tonight, and I just can't thank you guys enough. I hope you had a good experience. I hope you met cool colleagues that you'll work with in the future. And I really look forward to those that are sticking with me and going to be on the facilitation team. I really, I think it's going to be interesting. Interesting, I say in air quotes, once this gets up and running. But did anybody else have any comments before we sign off for the night? All right, I think we're talked out, and everybody's probably got to go grade papers or write papers for the end of the semester. So I will let everybody go. And thank you so much again, and keep an eye out for that survey and then potentially some emails from me as we start getting the deliverables in where I'll have questions. So thanks very much, guys. Have a great night.